All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the March 16th meeting of the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council. For the minutes, it's 9:34 in the morning. What I'd like to do is stand and have you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. All right, folks that are joining us, please come on in, take a seat. If you need extra chairs, there's chairs on the side of the room. Just please help yourself. If you're a director, please be sure you sign in on the roster so that Jody can have an accurate count and we can ensure we've reached a quorum. She's also going to be checking online to confirm which board members are online. Parking is a challenge we've discovered on Wednesdays because, like any good meeting location, there are lots of things going on here at Diamond Springs Station 49 at the same time. They have, I think, an annual or a weekly EMS meeting with the fire agencies and districts here as well. So and make sure I've got this correct, Hugh. If we're full around the building here, the EMS program, the EMS office right across the street from Cafe Santoro has agreed to allow parking in there. Plus, I think it's full now, but back here towards the drill tower and really anywhere along the road. I know traffic's tight in here, but we'll continue to work on that and make sure we've got good parking for folks. First and foremost, item number 4 is approval of the agenda before you. I sent it out online. There's copies of it, I believe, here today as well. I always have to remember how we're taking votes for our, for the minute, we haven't got to the minutes yet. I'm on the agenda. Yes. Nope, no problem. So because we're doing both, we're doing virtual and in person, what I will do for this purpose, anyone opposed or have issue with the agenda as presented for today, either here in the room or online.
The biomass unit of so far to our agenda too. I think we should talk about that.
Okay, I have the biomass working group on number 13, item 13E, county biomass, and I have Chris down. He had asked that be on the agenda for that. Okay. Any other additions, corrections? All right, hearing none, the agenda is approved. Item number 5, board meeting minutes. Those were all sent out, and we were a bit challenged last week getting all of the information down in the minutes due to some connectivity issues, but Jody worked hard and we provided some updates to capture that. We're also making a few adjustments and really downsizing the information collected for the minutes to really focus on just key items, certainly any of the decisions, and if there's anything key that comes from anything that's being presented. But generally speaking, our presenters provide information and we have access to those folks. So we don't want to be capturing necessarily everything they say word for word to make it easier to both process and read the minutes. So this current version reflects the beginning of starting to amend that. So with that in mind, any comments, corrections, concerns relative to the agenda from last month's meeting or the minutes?
You just commented on it. It took a while to put it together, but it's very thorough, and I appreciate the fact that the effort was put into it in its present form. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And then Jody's got one correction.
There is one correction. The Placerville Fire Safe Council event on March 19th is 10 to 3, not 2 to 3.
10 to 3.
Oh, yeah, all that work for 1 hour. That's good. Squeeze a lot in. No, thank you for that. Any other corrections, comments, or additions? All right, hearing none, the minutes from the February 16th meeting are approved. Okay, so I'm going to take a little executive license here. Heather Campbell would like to have her presentations for her normal presentations early because she's got to get on with important things that she needs to do that are critical. So with that, I would like to move both of her items, the community outreach as well as the so far information up next. Heather, you're on.
Well, so far it's really easy. I have nothing to report on that. And hello, people of Earth, by the way. And I'm finally getting around to do my job with the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council, and we will be doing our first educational session on Saturday, April 23rd, from 10 to 12 here in the El Dorado County or the Diamond Spring Fire Hall. This meeting is going to be on defensible space, and we're going to have two presenters. Both of them are master gardener. One of them is Lester's wife, Alice Cantelo, and the other one is Kit Veerkamp, who's also a landscape architect. So they're going to be doing the defensible space training. And Alice once did it for my Fire Safe Council years ago, and it was very, very, very good. When it comes to defensible space, there is so many different trainings. So this is just, the idea of it is so that you guys can bring in, hopefully the directors will all come, and any board members from your boards, and invite anybody else who would like to come. But it would just be nice if we all had one point of view that we all can draw the same information from. But don't think that because we're doing this, that you're only limited to whatever information is out on this one, because there's a lot of very good defensible space videos and all sorts of things. It'll be on Zoom, so people can also show up on Zoom, and we're also going to record it so that you can bring it back to your Fire Safe Council and show it at a meeting if you would like. So that's all I have. Again, that's Saturday, April 23rd, here in the conference room from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Any questions? Ken, I have no idea what you're saying.
So, all right, yes, as well. She's here virtually, of course. So when she says here in this room, it's in this room here in Diamond Springs. She's worked with you to ensure that the facility is available on that day.
If you want to come down to Santa Barbara, it's a nice place.
We just might.
10 to 12.
10 to 12. All right.
Thank you kindly.
No other comments. Thank you very much, Heather, for that. Okay, so next up, item 6 is a special presentation, and maybe I'll kick this off and then I'll throw my compadres down here as well. But as folks may recall, the Board of Supervisors on September 21st commissioned a wildfire resilience work group and gave some direction to the Chief Administrative Officer to work on a number of items post the Caldor fire. Thoughts in response to that. So with that, a working group was formed, and I think I'm going to turn it over maybe to Sue from the Chief Administrator's Office, maybe to provide a little bit of background on that, and then I can walk through briefly what the working group's been working on. But the working group is composed of the Chief Administrator's Office, El Dorado County Fire Chiefs Association, with Chief Cordero, who's here today, is representing them. Ron Phillips from the Fire Prevention Officers. Ron is on with us today. Nate Barclay and Mike Wankenheim from CAL FIRE, representing CAL FIRE. Jeff Marcellet, Forest Supervisor on the El Dorado, representing the El Dorado National Forest. Mark Egbert, representing the Resource Conservation District, and then myself, representing the Fire Safe Council. That was the initial work group that was developed, put together to begin with.
We lost audio.
We lost audio, Ken.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Yeah, just shout out if that happens again. Okay. So the group was formed, as we talked about, began meeting, and there were a number of items that were of importance that the group began to look at. And essentially, they were looking at what were lessons learned from the Caldor fire? What things could we take going forward? How could we look at increasing the pace and scale of fire prevention and fuels work and community resiliency in El Dorado County? And then how can we also bring together some of the independent or projects and activities, really good activities that are going on, but maybe happening independently or kind of on their own trajectory? How can we bring those together for a more unified approach to sort of a county-wide effort to addressing fire resiliency in El Dorado County? The actions that this group has taken so far is, this is where I get engaged, is that El Dorado County, the Chief Administrative Officer, brought me on board to work for Sue and the CAO to assist the work group in putting a number of these items together and sort of helping bring the items.
We lost you again.
You want to just switch to that one? All right, we may have a battery issue, so we'll just try this. So I'm on board assisting as temporary help with the county to help facilitate the working group. We have been working with the Resource Conservation District, and as Hugh has been coordinating, working on the fire safe coordinator position with the Resource Conservation District in the county, and that working group is helping facilitate the work plan for that individual. Probably the largest task has been engaging in a hazard mitigation grant, about $13.5 million grant that El Dorado County is applying through OES and FEMA, a pilot program that will pick a community here in El Dorado, a focus area here in El Dorado County, that provides a demonstration of defensible space, home hardening, and hazardous fuels reduction all combined into one focused area within a portion of the county. And this comes right on the heels of the instruction, the advice of Chuck and so many others who have been really advising on trying to bring the county and many of us on board to engage in these hazardous, these HMGP grants, if you will. So the county has applied for, as the lead on the grant, $10.2 million from the grant and approximately $3.3 million match from the county. That's the proposal. We've submitted a notice of interest with OES, which has been accepted. And now the working group in the county is working on preparing the sub-application, which is due April 8th. And there's a significant amount of effort, of course, Chuck knows, it goes into developing that sub-application. And because the work group has chosen sort of a pilot program that includes home hardening and ignition resistant construction and funding that, it's really cutting edge. The state has been working on developing protocol and criteria for a program like that. There are several pilot projects going on in San Diego and Shasta County through the Office of Emergency Services, but it's really cutting edge as they're just implementing their own program and all the details haven't been worked out. So we're building some of that ourselves, and we'll be treading some new ground as we put this forward in terms of how much do we fund to this grant in retrofits, how much towards defensible space. The key piece here is that no matter which focus area is picked and which homes are being retrofitted, it all has to be meet defensible space requirements first, so that basically protecting the investment. And then it's looking at things like roofing construction, siding, windows, eaves, all the things that we see, particularly in the recent NIST report that came out. Those are all really the guiding principles of building this program. And then is there a cost share, or is it something that's 100% funded for participants that are interested in the program? So all of that's kind of being built in the background right now. We just presented the 7 initial focus areas that we're looking at to the fire chiefs last week. Currently narrowing that down with the ultimate goal of having 1, maybe 2 small focus areas in the county that are utilizing fire history, structural density, age of structures if they're over 20 years and don't meet the current WUI building standards. All these things are going into an evaluation to pick an initial focus area that we think would have the most benefit. Understanding that countywide, we can all pick dozens of areas that we know are at risk, but we've got an opportunity for 1 to start this off. And so ultimately, we're going to end up picking that with the support of the working group. And we'll certainly be bringing more information back out, but we're currently in the phase of selecting that area and then using that information to complete the sub-application by April 8th. So a lot of work going into that, more to talk about in that as we go forward. But what we really wanted to make sure, in addition to that everyone's aware of, is that we've all been asking El Dorado County, the county itself, to be more engaged in fire prevention, fuels, this arena. And we know the county has responsibilities for the safety element of the general plan, the hazard mitigation plan, the vegetation management ordinance, as well as other aspects that it's critically important that they engage in, because at the end of the day, the county is responsible when communities like Grizzly Flats burn. Ultimately, everyone's looking to the county to rebuild. No matter how much funding comes from FEMA and OES, it's always comes back to our community, our county, supporting those efforts. The building codes, ensuring that we're building to the current WUI building standards and how that works. All of that's the county's responsibility. So part of the recommendation coming from this working group is to engage the county with an Office of Wildfire Resilience, to have a program at the CIO's office level that will help inform and coordinate, bringing together the stakeholders to inform these documents. It's not taking over the hazard mitigation plan from where it sits. It's not taking over the general plan, but it's ensuring that there is a process to inform those documents going forward, that they have all the information that's current and truly represent the risk and the initiatives going forward. So on next week, on Tuesday, March 22nd at 10 o'clock, the work group will be presenting to the Board of Supervisors this proposal. We'll be providing an update, just like I'm sharing with you, on what the working group's been doing to date. And then there will be some specific asks of the board. One that is to form this Office of Wildfire Resilience, very limited staff program. It's not to take over any other program or function that's going on with stakeholders around the county, but it's to provide really that glue to pull together all the efforts that are going on in the county and help prioritize, so that we don't have siloed efforts that we know when the department or the Transportation Commission is doing a project around Greater Placerville, that it can be coordinated with other efforts that are going on in the CWPP, that are going on with Department of Transportation itself, with Forest Service, with CAL FIRE programs within the state, within the unit's fire plan, all the other activities that are going on so far. And with the idea being that there's a clearinghouse. And I think the number one thing that the working group found, and will report back to the board on, is that there's really no central clearinghouse for any of this information. A lot of great efforts going on, but how many people really know what's going on with the CWPP? We have a process where we get it approved through the Board of Supervisors, but how many really know what that means and where the information is, and how the proposed projects in that document overlay with other things going on in the community and all the efforts going on at the Resource Conservation District. So the idea being, number one, as a priority, is to bring together that data hub and start building a map. Ultimately, portions of that will be outward facing. So as community members, fire safe councils, others, we can go and literally see in one place where all the activities are and how that overlays with fire districts and other activities. So that map's already in play. The surveyor's office has assigned a GIS technician to our working group, along with the vegetation management program, and they're supporting building this map and this effort already. So we'll be going forward to the board next week, asking for some program support, build this program, and then also bring on some staff to help support, temporary staff to help support the initiation of this grant as we see it through. As we know, this will be a process through approval and implementation over the next 3 to 4 years. Long term, we'd like to continue to build a wildfire strategy for El Dorado County, similar to that ties in what goes to the fire plans at the federal level and the state level, wildfire or the Forest Resilience Task Force and plans that the state have that are really the guiding documents for funding and efforts. I want to bring all that in so El Dorado County as a whole, I don't mean just county government, but the county geographically can have a holistic plan that assesses risk and coordinates and identifies where the highest priorities are for projects. And again, the idea being, and just for this council itself, we have 26 fire safe councils, and we're all going to the Department of Transportation and other agencies for the same stuff. We all want the same limited resources. We all want the chippers. We all want the flaggers. We all want all of that. And there aren't enough resources to go around to everybody. So how do we, again, step back and have this governance to, okay, let's start looking at priorities. And maybe, one area of the county doesn't get picked this year. We're going to focus our efforts somewhere else and then move on to it next year. But the idea being that there's a plan so we can all sit down and agree to it and have the governance going forward to get there. Leveraging our grant opportunities. It's not taking away the opportunities for anybody to apply for grants or do what they need to do. Just needs to be clear understanding going forward that we're coordinating this and a full realization that you may not have access to all of the CAL FIRE crews this year, or there may not be access to CCC. There may not be other opportunities because we've all agreed that over here is where those limited resources are going to be leveraged. So really, in a nutshell, that's where this is coming down to. It's really the county taking an opportunity while there's funding available and, quite frankly, a recognition of the risk that and hazard that exists in El Dorado County that was, really amplified by what we all lived through last fall with the Caldor fire. And so I don't know with that. And again, I talked about who's part of the working group that's really been putting this together and making the recommendations. Ultimately, that working group will transition to, it'll be a broader stakeholder-based group and bringing in many other partners with really the focus and the support coming from this Office of Wildfire Resiliency at the county. So I know with that, there's kind of a lot to talk about. Perfect timing, Chief Cordero, but the chief is here. Sue Henneke is here from the CAO's office. And as I mentioned, you've got Ron on the phone. Mark couldn't be here today, but I don't know, I'm gonna throw it out to any other comments from the working group.
So I think Ken did a great job of providing that overview, and just a couple of things I want to really highlight is the importance of everyone understanding with our creation or recommendation to create this office. Hopefully the board will support it. The intention is, I think Ken used the word glue, I've used the word hub. It's to add something to everything that you are all doing already. So it's not to replace anyone, to take over anyone's work at all. It's to bring that all together. And one of the things that's really exciting for me that we've been talking about for a while is this mapping project. We've talked for a long time about trying to find ways to better recognize and tell the good stories that are going on through all these different stakeholder groups. And what better way to do that than to bring them all together on a map, bring all this data together in one hub. And I think the county is positioned really well to provide the resources to do that. And so far, our surveyor's office has been very, very supportive of that. They've loaned us a wonderful resource. Her name is Sarah Doherty, and she's just been awesome. And so hopefully we'll get to continue to use her to support this group and our efforts for quite a while. But I think that's really kind of just what I want everyone to walk away from this with, is that unfortunately what's been happening in the West over the last 10, 15 years, provides a really good policy window for people to start throwing money at these types of efforts. And so we've really obviously seen that ramped up at the federal level, the state level. Everything we hear from them is extremely supportive of what we're trying to do. They're very excited for us to submit this grant because, as Ken said, it is kind of a cutting edge thing to be going into private landowners' neighborhoods and starting to do their defensible space work and their home hardening. I mean, that's when I first was given the opportunity, I'll call it, to help out with the county's vegetation management ordinance. That was a big identified obstacle right out the gate, was how do people get the resources to do what we're asking them to do? So I feel like we're heading down a really good path with that. And eventually, again, if the board does approve the creation of this office, we would fold in the vegetation management sort of policy program aspects into that office, because it really, that program and that ordinance are really just one tool in this whole larger policy area that we're talking about with wildfire, preparation, mitigation, management. So hopefully we'll see big changes going forward in that program. That is part of the work that this working group will be doing, is evaluating that program and making recommendations on it for the future as well. And again, from the inception of that program, I had hoped that we'd have a lot more collaboration and be able to work with the fire safe councils in that program quite a bit. We've had some staffing challenges, but I hope that we will definitely increase that linkage there going forward through that program. Chief?
Thank you. Tim Cordero, representing the Eldorado County Fire Chiefs. And we're excited to see this program get off the ground and get going, and having the county kind of take that leadership umbrella on this. Right now, there's, we have the fire safe councils that are, working on the fire mitigation throughout our county. The fire departments individually, we do defensible space inspections, and we're, working on those. Our partners with CAL FIRE, they do the same thing. So to have kind of a coordination center, I think, where we've got that one umbrella that's really kind of coordinating all the efforts that all of us are doing, is going to be really a positive move for the county. So we're excited to see this get going and really take off, in full support of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. I see Ron unmuted. Do you have any comments, Ron Phillips?
Good morning, everybody. Ron Phillips from the County Fire Prevention Officers Association. I just wanted to pass along on behalf of the FBOs our thanks to both Ken and Sue and their leadership in this project. I think the Fire Safe Council members are going to learn a lot about this in the weeks to come, and I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised about the coordinated effort. And it really started with Ken and Sue's leadership. So that's all I have to say.
We didn't pay him to say that, so I don't know.
No political endorsement was required.
So with that, I think we maybe have oh, yes, I'm going to say go ahead and take questions for a little bit here. We kind of planned for that. David.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. I just was wondering, what are the layers that you're looking at for the mapping project? What kind of layers would you expect to see?
It's pretty comprehensive, David. I think that the sky is kind of the limit, and that's been kind of the beauty of having Sarah on board with this, is that we have full access to everything, every data layer that the county has. So we're just trying to figure out anything that might be appropriate. But we're looking at housing densities. We're looking at all of the hazard severity zone designations. We're looking at anybody that has, we're trying to collect more data, and ultimately we'll have some sort of process or governance for how we collect and share. But anybody that has project information that, coming in from agencies or organizations that have shape files, we're bringing that in, and we're really open to anything that we think is helpful that folks would think would be appropriate. And it's just a matter of managing it, because obviously the more you put on a map, the more busy it becomes. But to have access and bring layers on and off as folks are planning. And for us, the idea was, well, if we're a fire safe council and we're trying to put together a grant proposal, it would be nice to know, we're going to put a project together. Well, who else is working in here? Are there other project proposals going on? Is the RCD and Sierra Nevada Conservancy proposing a project, or is DOT working on something, or somebody I'm not even thinking about, EID? So the idea being is there's one place to go. So as we're preparing that, we can see. And it's also to deconflict. So as we get together and from a planning perspective, we're sitting in the room. Okay, what priority do we want to be working on? Well, who else is there working that we maybe now we can stay away from that or complement each other. So, but the idea is the data layers are really, it's really endless, David. We're just really learning and exploring what else we can add to it. Lester.
Is it possible to have two focus areas? One for rural setting and one for Cameron Park, say, or some of the areas that have depth?
No, it's a good question, Lester. We actually had a cross section of sort of all of that. We had a very dense, we were looking down in the El Dorado Hills area to really get a more dense look that still had a fire challenge. And then we were also looking at other areas from Mosquito to Outingdale and a few places in between to try to get a cross section. Ultimately, what we're trying to look at is what can we manage through this program? How far can our funds go? The programs that are out there now that are being piloted by OES and Shasta and San Diego counties in partnership, they're funding about $40,000 per parcel to do defensible space and ignition resistant construction retrofits. Well, the money goes pretty fast. So we're trying to look at, from a program management and demonstration perspective, how do we make all of that work, build in a hazard reduction project as the third component, and how does that play into other activities that are already going on in the communities, and what are the demographics of the community? The other pilot programs are really targeting what's called this socially vulnerable, and there's an index and a criteria that's used statewide to identify that. 65 years plus, income level, literally access to a vehicle. There's a number of criteria, and they have highlighted the state, and El Dorado County actually is very low in that index. It falls below 1. So we're not even on the radar for the state's program. So what we're trying to do then is look at El Dorado County itself. And we really want to make sure our idea here is to help those that can't get this done on their own. And so part of the selection of the community is we're looking at the risk and what's out there, but then we're also looking at the demographics of the focus area to see, is this an area that could truly benefit from this? Again, because we're investing a lot of the county. What we're proposing to the county is the county itself to commit $3.3 million as the match. And so we really want to make sure that we're proposing a project that is good stewards of public money and really making the best impact for those that can't get this work done. We gave Sue the bent microphone here.
Also just want to say that we hope if we ultimately just select that one focus area this year, we're hoping it's the beginning. So, potentially if we're looking at participating in multiple grant cycles and we're moving around the county with this first one, as Ken mentioned, we want to be able to demonstrate that we can do it. So we want to make it very manageable. We want the money to have an impact. We talked a lot about focusing in one area versus a program that people might be able to apply for funds to work on their homes throughout the county. It's kind of like spreading the peanut butter really thin over the bread, and you don't really get as much of an impact there. So I really like the phrase demonstration community, because I think that's what we're trying to do here in a number of ways. We're trying to demonstrate to the residents what it is they need to do, and maybe, how attractive the neighborhood, the area can look when you go in and do all this work. I mean, that would be another, I think, motivating factor. And also demonstrate to the state what we can do and what we can get done, so that this funding might keep flowing and we have more opportunities to move throughout the county. because it is difficult, as you said, that it's a very diverse area. And so our money might go farther in one area than in another area. So as we start out, we're definitely considering factors like that.
We've had the exact same thoughts though, Lester, so it's well-placed question. I've got, before I forget, I've got Tamara online with a question.
Questions that were on the table.
Well, okay, I didn't see him, Chris, thank you, but I'm gonna go to Tamara first because I do see her.
Couple here.
I have a few questions. One is, are you involving PG&E or the El Dorado County Office of OES in this working group? I'm thinking in terms of PG&E, if there's a way to influence where they do work, that would be coinciding with, other work that's happening in the county. So it's a little more coordinated. I don't know if that's possible. And then also with OES, I know there's issues with code red and maybe, evacuation processes should be looked at too as part of this. Just curious if you're involving those two agencies.
Good question. So I'll do the second one first. What's important to understand is what this is not, and we had to agree to this from the very beginning, is that we really want to focus on the pre-fire work, fire prevention, fuels treatment. Now, to the extent that informing those activities and projects, we've got to crosswalk with evacuation planning and those efforts, absolutely. But we don't want to dive into the operational aspects of wildland fire response in the county, nor get into the evacuation planning, code red, or those elements, because as we all know, those are all efforts that are large in and of themselves. And to be effective with this group, we need to really focus, and really the direction of the board is to focus on the pre-work, to make our county resilient prior to the fire. So as far as which agencies and organizations and stakeholders are part, so initially the CAO was very clear, and it's been very effective to have a very small group, a cross-section of folks representing the organizations that are doing much of the work in the county, with the idea then of building this out to be inclusive of OES and PG&E, and quite frankly, dozens of others that we know are critical. But we needed to put some framework together first so that we had something to sit down and bring people in to participate with. And so that's where we've really been utilizing the expertise of the fire chiefs, CAL FIRE, and the Forest Service and others to try to put that together. But yes, the goal of the working group before it transitions out, and certainly the goal of this Office of Resiliency, if it's approved, will be over the next 6 to 12 months, is to bring that together and see what that looks like. Because absolutely, to the extent that folks are able to share, we want PG&E data on these maps. We want PG&E at the table. We want, absolutely, matter of fact, we'll be meeting with County OES on Friday to talk about this program. So we all have to be, the whole idea behind this is to bring this larger stakeholder group together.
And then I wanted to say, just make a comment that I would encourage you when you're choosing the demonstration group, and maybe you've already thought about this, I would assume that you had, but is to choose one that's really difficult rather than one that seems to be easy. I think there might be a tendency to choose easy because then you can show success. But if you choose difficult, then there's more opportunity to work through what all the potential issues would be throughout the county. So just a comment about that.
Good thought. We've been back and forth all through that.
I'm sure
Very well-placed question, Tim. Okay, let me see the hands again down here.
I did, but I think I'll drop it. But the quick question is that I think at the last meeting here, the fire chiefs or the fire prevention officers were going to start looking at the various roads within the county that are non-maintained by the DOT. And could that information be put onto the mapping?
Absolutely. That's just a perfect example, Ernie, of the kinds of things we've got to try to pull in so we don't lose it. Yep. Paul.
Is with the, and I missed the CWPP presentation, but I think that mapping and leverage what we're trying to do from the wildland resiliency.
You hit the nail on the head, Paul. That's exactly what we need to look at. The CWPP doesn't stand alone. They all stand together in this broader effort that's going on. And we don't have one place, one plan that's identifying a cross section of the hazards and risk in the county and what efforts are going on to mitigate that. And from there, what do we need to do differently to help meet those risks and hazards that we identify? We've got a lot of great efforts going on, but we don't have it kind of all in one place to leverage it together. And with the proposal to the board talks about over the next 12 to 18 months is basically building a strategic wildfire resilience plan for El Dorado County, inclusive of built by the stakeholders, going forward with that. So Chris. Oh, man, we'll go back.
To say, Sue, that the terminology is very important. And so I noted on my notes here, when we talk about focused areas and use those terms, we talk about emphasis areas and we use those terms. We talk about demonstration areas and we use those terms. And we might be using them in different forums, meaning what today might be focus group, the next one might be emphasis area. I'm just saying it's got to be clear what we're speaking about. And if all of those three things that I just said were consistent and they could be interchangeably used, then we can state that. But if the words themselves are meaningful in some regard, like vegetation management having an emphasis area, then I would say you got to be clear with this working group what it is that you're describing, so that people know that it's either the same thing or you understand what I'm saying, Ken?
I do. So we had that discussion. You're absolutely right. One of the reasons that we're calling these focus areas and not communities. So understand we started broad. We narrowed this down to 7, what we're calling focus areas. And that does have meaning, Chris, because it's not a community. The areas we're looking at aren't as, we know around this county, everybody identifies with geographic things or things that the demographics. We wanted to make sure it wasn't tied to any one of that, because the lines on the map, the boundaries of these areas are geographically smaller. They don't necessarily follow what maybe folks would normally consider to be Garden Valley or Mosquito. So what we want is to be very clear the focus area is unique in and of itself. And yes, within that, we do need to land on what these are. As we're forming the sub-application language, we really are thinking about, is this a demonstration project? As Sue said, is it a pilot project? We need to make sure we're consistent in the wording and what we expect to come out of when we say this is a demonstration project. And so it's clearly articulated. You're absolutely right. I know, Sue, you had your hand up to respond.
Just, and so Chris, to that point, one of the areas we've identified is the need for coordinated community outreach. And so, I mean, we'll get into terminology and things like that when we get into those efforts. Just want to touch on back with Paul and Ken, what you were saying. One of the other things we're asking the board, and on the same day the board is considering its countywide strategic plan. So we are recommending, and the CAO, well, my boss is recommending to the board that we add a theme to our countywide strategic plan, which is to lead and facilitate the creation and maintenance of wildfire resistant communities. Underneath that, we have a task of developing a countywide, well, what did we land on?
Strategy.
Wildfire strategy. So the right on point, I think, with what you were saying, Paul, is this whole point of this is to be very strategic in this and to provide governance and leadership over it.
Ken, just one more.
Yeah.
I wanted to let you know, Sue's probably the best, or maybe one of the best analysts at the county. She's been assigned multiple projects over the years, and wherever she gets assigned, she does a really superior job. So you're very lucky, Ken, to be working with her.
Well, definitely. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't have signed on to take on more work if I didn't think that, one, the support that's going on, and I truly mean this, that I cannot overemphasize the importance that this is being placed on it in the CAO's office, and that we've talked about it over and over again, and Don has continued to tell us that you have an opportunity right now to do what we've all been asking the county to do, and now's the time to get it done, and ask what you want to ask now, because this is the time. And so, yes, we're having to put a lot of stuff together fairly quickly. But at the end of the day, and maybe not be able to articulate it as easily and as clearly as we would like, because we've been putting this together, obviously quickly to move things along. But more will come out, as Sue said, over time. The first big step is literally going to the board and, one, asking for $3.3 million to match, and two, asking for several positions to support a brand new program that will reside at the CAO's office. And quite frankly, three, to put together a plan that's going to incorporate all the things that you all have just talked about. And to have the county elevate the importance of wildfire resilience to the strategic plan level, to change language, to emphasize. Right now, I mean, Sue and I sat down, we've been looking at the language in the strategic plan. And quite frankly, things are in there because folks are just getting it done and moving on to the next thing. And no, it's so important now that we need to really spell out, here's the direction the county needs to go, so that not only this board of supervisors, and not only staff working in the county now, and the rest of us out here, it lives beyond all of us, because that's the direction we need to go. And it's that important to this county. It's such a key risk that we face. So this really is a groundbreaking opportunity. So a roundabout way, getting back to, yeah, Chris, I'm pretty happy and excited to be working with that team. Okay.
So we didn't catch your last name.
Oh, and be sure you turn your microphones on when you guys, I know that some of the audience has had trouble hearing, but the
It's-
question was, who is Sue?
So my name is Sue Henneke. I've been with the county a little over 20 years. And so I'm deputy CAO over emergency medical services, emergency preparedness, and I'm also the law and justice analyst for our office and lead on budget development. Sure. HENNIKE.
I've got Pat.
Yes, I'd just like to, from the strategic high point, I'd like to say thank you to all the people involved in getting this going. I remember many years ago, probably more than 8, Steve and I were sitting in Supervisor Rinaldi's office and pounding on the table saying, the #1 threat to the people and the prosperity of El Dorado County is wildfire. And there is no place in the county to go where you can get an answer. There's a lot of pieces, but it's not pulled together. And so I really applaud the effort. Say thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments? Looking online to make sure we're not missing anybody. So just to reiterate, the presentation's next Tuesday, March 22nd, 10 o'clock. It's on the agenda at the Board of Supervisors. And I believe the strategic plan updates right after that, correct, Sue? Yeah, so probably a good opportunity to tune into that to see where that's going. And again, I just want to thank the working group team, folks that are here, Ron, Tim, Sue. It's been a good process, and I appreciate their support's been phenomenal. Thank you. Tried to abridge it because we're over an hour at the fire chiefs. I was trying to consolidate it for our group, but great. All right, moving on to the next slide. It's really number 7, public comment. So at this time, open it up for any specific comments from the public, not necessarily specifically related to the Fire Safe Council program. All right. Moving on from that, number 8, community council reports. This time we have an opportunity just to update any of the councils on activities or things going on in your area. David. And if we get to make sure we just turn the microphone or pass it so folks can hear.
The Great Poupon, as I've just said. Okay, thanks, Pat. This Saturday from 10 to 3, Placerville Fire Safe Council is doing a wildfire awareness of anyway, thank you, Tim and Lester and Ernie and everyone who's going to show up. I think you're showing up.
Thanks, David. Chris.
There you go. Chris Payne, Patterson Ranch Fire Safety Council. I thought this was important to recognize the Sierra Nevada Conservancy and also the Sierra Institute, who held a joint summit a week or so ago. I don't know if anybody Zoomed with them, but it was very thorough. And at the end, they had a roundtable discussion related to wildfire and wildfire recovery. It lasted a couple hours, and I believe it's been recorded. So if you go to the Sierra Nevada Conservancy website, you might be able to get at least maybe a transcript or something that they would have available. But why I think this is important, because it's more, as Ken said, it's more than government. It's more than us as fire safe councils. It's a huge endeavor, which different people are taking different perspectives, but they are certainly, I would say they, in terms of that community that they work with, they're at the forefront. I'm talking to Sierra Nevada Conservancy. So Ken, I just wanted to emphasize that and say that there's always an opportunity, right, Ken, to find out more information. You just have to have the time in order to be able to do it.
That's a fact.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that's what we've all learned through this process, is it's okay to find something new out every day. The whole idea about pushing this group, all of us together, is to understand what we're all doing. So it's okay to find out about something that way.
Sure.
Oh, hang on. All right, let me grab Sherry first, and then I'll go to Janet here, and then Janet Berenson here.
Hi,
Sherry.
all. I just wanted to announce the 3 fire safe councils up here in Pollock Pines. Kay, Heather, and I will be doing a community meeting, and Ben Gotts of U.S. Forest Service will be doing a presentation. It'll be not just your regular preparedness meeting, but also information about, road closures, seasonal closures, whole bunch of great information. We plan on having that. Date is not absolutely set yet. It'll be April 30th or May 1st, more than likely. But we'll be sure to send out an invitation to the board in case anybody would like to attend, or we would love, people to send that out. It doesn't just need to be for Pollock Pines. We welcome anybody that would like to attend.
Thank you, Sherry. Janet.
Janet Berenson, Occam Fair Play. I just wanted to share that Occam Fair Play held its very first volunteer fuel reduction project weekend, actually, this last weekend, where we worked at a area that we had identified as an area in need between the 2 schools at Pioneer School, and between the elementary and the middle school. We were fortunate enough to have about a dozen volunteers come out, and extremely pleased that in our community we had 2 arborists, tree companies come out with their chippers and assist us. And I wanted to throw a shout out to Foothill Arborists and the tree guys who brought their staff and their chipping equipment out and chipped and removed all of the material that we pulled, had their folks actually pulling trees and cutting and taking out hazardous trees in the area between the 2 schools. Also want to thank the Pioneer School District and their staff, Nick Tortelson and Chris Claudini, who were there, and they have shared how pleased they were with the work that the volunteers were able to do there. I'm very excited about the project. I think it was a huge success. I look forward to doing more of these, but for a first effort for our council, I'm really pleased with how that worked. I do want to thank Karen who had to deal with us not once but twice on insurances. We had to postpone our first day because of weather. So that's it from Wacom Fair Play.
Thank you, Janet. Yes, I'm still sore, so. Yeah, Lester.
Yeah, Lester Lubetzky. The Oak Hill Area Fire Safe Council had their first community day event last Saturday, and it was successful. We had quite a few folks there. And we were hoping at the next meeting in April to bring some of the examples of, we had some kids' activities and some other displays, and that we thought worked real well, engaged a lot of kids and whatnot. So we're hoping to bring those and show people next month.
Awesome. That'd be great, Lester. It's kind of exciting to hear that the community events are starting to happen again out there. That is super good. All right. I don't see any other hands. Don't see anyone online. Oh, I got, sorry, Pat.
A quick update from Logtown. We've begun our monthly meeting, second Saturday of every month. In February, we had OES there on evacuations. And then just last weekend, on the 12th of March, we had Chief Matt Gallagher and Leah Yaz from Diamond Fire. They're talking about hardening your home. So we're going through the checklist: defensible space, harden your home, evacuation, and we'll just keep plugging away.
Thank you, Pat. Okay. Right, with that, we'll move on to information items. I think chair's reports first. I think I'll defer mine. I've talked enough so far. So with that, let's go to 9B and Hugh, Vice Chair report.
I have just a couple things. First of all, in relation to the coordinator position, there have been 4 applicants for that. The resumes and evaluation criteria for that should be out to the evaluation group tomorrow. And Mark is looking to set up a meeting. He's going to set out a request for a meeting next Tuesday to evaluate those folks and see what's going on with that. That's always subject to change, like everything. Tomorrow, I'll attend the FBO meeting. I typically do those every month. And I'll also be attending the Placerville event on Saturday. I'll be sharing a table with RCD at that. We've also, it's going to be at Town Hall. Also, we being the Fire Safe Council, have received a request from Greenstone area requesting a meeting to look at them becoming a Fire Safe Council. So we'll be meeting with them, or I'll be meeting with them, talking about that, answering whatever kind of questions they have. And so that's coming up. And the last thing is this fire hall update. We're just about done with that. And what I'm looking for now are any comments from any folks, especially those folks that are online, for any suggestions or any comments for improvements of that. If there's some issues that they're seeing out there that we could do to make it better for them. Folks here, doesn't seem to be a problem, but if you're out there, we'd like to know what's going on with that. So that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Hugh. Next up, Treasury report, Maureen, or Secretary first.
Is it on? Mine will be kind of short. I just wanted to remind the councils that in June we renew. So I'll need just a heads up, probably starting in April, I will start reaching out to the fire safe councils for their renewal forms, their board, their associate council agreements, applications, and conflict of interest forms. We need to have those in. Hopefully by June 1st, we'll have everyone in. Those are required also, so we know who is going to continue being on our insurance, and that's our documentation that we need for not only insurance, but so we know who our councils are and their contact information. Shortly thereafter, because of the way that our elections run, shortly thereafter, by the end of June, we'll need all of the documents for board members to come in. So just be on the lookout for that information to start coming out in April. So I don't know if anyone has any questions on any of that.
You might mention that on the forms, I believe it's 1, 2, and 12 or something along that line.
Yeah, what I normally do is I'll send out the forms themselves to the different councils, and then they can email them back to me. So the forms will be on my email going out to everyone that shows the forms and where to get them, tell them where to get them in case they need to reprint more. So thank you. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Karen. Okay, now the treasurer report.
Well, first of all, I want to apologize. I forgot to send out the QuickBook reports I normally have sent out. I was just off my game, so I will certainly send them out this evening. There's nothing really noteworthy of either of the reports, the budget or the project reports. So unless anybody has any questions, it's pretty simple. We're down to basically 3 months of the rest of the fiscal year, and we're doing great. Any questions on anything?
Okay, so we have the treasurer's report before us with the caveat from Maureen that the detailed spreadsheet will come out post this meeting, but the original project sheets were sent out. So with that, I'll put the motion to, or the vote to the group. Any concerns, additions, edits, or comments? Anybody in objection to the treasurer's report as presented? Okay, with that, nothing online, we'll consider that approved. So next up, as we get to partners reports, I see that Supervisor Parlin's online with us. And so I just want to turn to you, Supervisor. Any comments, thoughts, or questions for the group while we have you?
So, shoot. No, I'm on my phone and computer. Sorry, I'm all mixed up today. And looking forward to the board discussion on Tuesday at 10 a.m. See you there.
See you there. Thank you. Okay, BLM, Jason reached out. He's not able to make it today due to conflicts. So next up, we've got Steve DeBenedette from CAL FIRE. Steve, welcome. You are good.
Okay.
I think, yeah. We're good.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm new to the group, so just an introduction. My name is Steve Benedict. I'm with CAL FIRE, and I am currently the acting lead for Colorado. As many of you know, Tom Tinsley, my supervisor, retired in November, and in January, I assumed the unit for their responsibility. So I'll be doing that until we can find a permanent seat in this position. But my goal is to get to know you guys, get on board with what we're doing, and provide that same level of service that you guys receive from confidence. I've already met with some of you, and gotten a little bit up to speed on everything you're doing, and I do have to say it in an outgoing note from Tom. He was very impressed with this group. He really thought you guys had it together, and I know that just in the wider esteem of Amateur Eldorado and CAL FIRE, we're just super appreciative of all the efforts that come out of this group. We all come together from different places with the same goal, try to have the safety communities that we live in. So thank you there. What's currently happening here in the unit? We are going through. We have received some grants, both the fire prevention grants and the forest health grants. So those application deadlines have come and passed. They're being reviewed. And I think by the beginning of April, mid-April, that'll be really looked at by region as far as coming out afterwards. So I know that you guys had quite a few in fire prevention grants, a few forest health grants. We'll look to see what the outcome is there. That is, we'll see what we can back. Other than that, that's all I've got for you right now. It's a little update on the grants introduction. But again, as time goes on, we'll get to
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate you being here. Chris?
I just wanted to say thank you, Steve. It's a hard person to follow because as you know, having known him, he's quite a phenomenal guy in so many respects. If you can be just a part of that and reflect your personality and hopefully it's going to be something that we can then in a long-term way really appreciate when you retire. Thank you, Ken.
Pat?
Yes, I've got a question. Our local fire safe councils requesting CAL FIRE speakers from the AEU. And Logtown, we're going to have the Battalion 1 chief, I think, from the Y come talk to us in April. But should we go through, is there a central point that we should be trying to coordinate these speaker requests? And is that you?
Yeah, so I mean, I've talked about this in different forms, but maybe you guys know that we are somewhat limited on staffing. We do have a lot of, I think we have like 5 vacant battalion chiefs in the unit right now. We have this resource management position, the unit force position that's vacant. And, you know, speaking with Tom about these issues, he felt, and I agree, and we're just gonna have to go forward, that this is the forum that, you know, I would come to and be available to you. So we just don't have the staffing to go to all the different individual fire safe councils, but this one here, we could provide you all the support that we're able to support.
I don't mean attending on a regular basis. Obviously, the 26 and 12 months is overwhelming. I mean, for specific requests to come one time, perhaps a year, to each one of the councils, put the CAL FIRE face out there, talk about wildland response. How does that happen? What, you know, I think that there's a huge value in having that face-to-face in the community on an occasional basis, and maybe you can figure out a way to make it happen.
Sure. Yeah. Well, again, this is the forum that I'll be directing my efforts to, but I will consider what you said and see if there's something that we might be able to come up with. So,
Well, and just to help Steve out here, Steve and I met for a couple hours a few weeks ago, have that similar conversation, and just trying to obviously recognize that there are a lot of folks in flux. And you know, I certainly made the commitment that we would try to make all of this as efficient as possible. And it's no different. You're going to hear that same from Mike at PG&E and others, that it's hard to cover probably close to 30 fire safe councils that we'll have here probably in the next year. So we're trying to balance all of that. But I will tell you that CAL FIRE has made a huge commitment. I would literally spent some time on the phone yesterday with Josh Vickers, the Battalion 2711, the El Dorado Battalion Chief. Very interested in reaching out and engaging with folks who should be here at the next meeting. So they are working really hard to try to get out as they get both positions filled to make those connections. So, but I think keep in mind, as you're reaching out individually, they're going to be challenged to try to get to some of these meetings, and we'll work with everybody to try to make it work.
I'll just add one thing is that the unit is being proactive. There is discussion right now having this public town hall meeting. So they may not be engaged, in alignment with the particular fire safe council meetings, but there'll be town hall meetings that multiple fire safe councils within that area will be able to attend. So it's not that we're not, understanding the need to go out there and do that outreach. Try to focus our efforts where we can hit as many people quickly.
So I think, Kay, did you have your hand was up? There we go.
Yes, Sierra Springs will be starting our big push for the year again for defensible space evaluations. We do them throughout the year also. Will you continue to want those? And if so, I've been printing them and then just giving them to Tom or whoever's in the office. Can I email them to someone, and who would I direct those to?
I'd like to learn more about that. So yeah, I want to continue everything that you had going on with Tom. I don't want that level of service to drop at all. So I could provide you my email address, and you could send me that information, and I'll talk internally on how we handle that information.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Steve, a quick thing on that. Tom was wanting to quote unquote get credit for the defensible space evaluations that were conducted under within the western slope. And so that's the reason why we either handed him a hard copy or we scanned and then sent a zip file, just so that your unit can get credit for the education and some of the work. I know it's not perfect. I'll guarantee you in the first place there, but at least it shows some education being spread out throughout the western slope.
Let me add something to that also. The idea behind this was is your staffing wasn't enough to be able to go out and do the coverage. So Tom used us as best we could to be able to do some of that legwork, so you didn't have to do it. But then you would get some credit because we would give you the hard copies of those reviews. And you can keep doing that or not doing that. Like you say, you'd like to keep doing some of the things. But that's why coming to a fire safe council meeting, like we've talked about here, on an individual basis, became kind of the balance between what we were what we were doing in the neighborhoods and stuff, and what you would want us to be doing. And that's why town hall meetings may be fine, but that individual person to be there is kind of critical, and we wouldn't want to overburden you.
So just to kind of keep this part moving along, a couple of things come up. What Tom was doing was exactly what folks are saying. I think there's some things out there that can be challenging. The fire safe councils are, how do I say it? They're the white hats. They're doing evaluations. They're not inspecting. And when Chris talked about earlier, words matter, they do. So there's a difference between a fire safe council providing an advisory evaluation to a homeowner saying, here's the things you should work on, versus any of the fire districts or CAL FIRE or others coming out and saying, here's the county veg ordinance or 4291. This is what you need to do to be in compliance. It's a fine line because we want all of our communities to welcome their community members, fire safe council members, their neighbors, so that doesn't become contentious and feel. So there is a fine line between what is being called an evaluation and what's being called an inspection. Just to kind of put a point on this discussion, there's a lot going on in vegetation management right now. We'll get to it here in a second, but it involves evaluator training again this year. It involves how the program's rolling out. I think all this stuff's going to be sort of coming to a head in the next month or so as these programs get up. And we've got some things we've got to work on to try to get us coordinated and up to speed. So with that, I think, Steve, thank you. And I'm gonna move it along. And thanks, Chris. I made a correction to my copy of the agenda. And I knew this, and I don't know why I never fixed the agenda, but Tim Cordero is the fire chief, is the president of the Fire Chiefs Association. And so I've lined out, Mike reminded me of that. So Chief Cordero is here, so I'm gonna throw it to him.
Chief Lowenthal reminded me as well.
I know. See, it worked out.
Yeah, it all worked out. No, again, good morning. Tim Cordero representing the El Dorado County Fire Chiefs Association. We had a special meeting last Friday, got this presentation from the Wildfire Resiliency Group. A lot of good discussion. Appreciate all the work that the Deputy CAO Sue and Chief Penline have been putting into this effort. It's a great thing. We appreciate their leadership on this. Our next regular meeting is next week. So with that, really appreciate the work. I will give another selfish plug to the Placerville Fire Safe Council for their event that's coming up Saturday. We'll have units there as well as CAL FIRE and Forest Service, and it should be a great event. So hope to see a good turnout.
Thanks, Chief. And we will be bringing to you at that meeting, someone will, the CWPP, the final version that we're looking for county chiefs buy off, because we're trying to get this moved forward. So we'll have copies, electronic copies for you at the meeting, and presenting probably some just a form to certify here in the next couple of weeks. Thank you. Okay, with that, Ron Phillips, Fire Prevention Officers.
Good morning, everybody. Ron, hope everybody's doing well. Just a few updates for the group. The first is, it was mentioned earlier that the county has a general plan document that contains a safety element. Excuse me, that one portion of that safety element pertains to fire protection. That document is in the process of being updated right now by the county planning director and her staff. So we're starting to work on providing comment to the county on that document and what it will look like going forward. I apologize if you hear background noise. It's my beagle running around and playing. So, so that's the first item. Second item is update on a few regulations that we've discussed in the past that I think are important for the group. The first is the Board of Forestry's attempt to update the Title 14 fire safe regulations statewide continues to be somewhat stalled at the state level. The Board of Forestry met earlier this month and decided to once again delay further public comment and or discussion on those regulation updates. So we're continuing to monitor that activity and see where that's going to go. The other regulation update that I think the group would be interested in hearing more about, since many of us, including myself, are on the California FAIR Plan and the issue of insurance. The State Department of Insurance has issued a proposed rulemaking effort that would establish mitigation and rating plans and wildfire risk modeling. So I believe it's an attempt to standardize the way insurance companies, in fact, evaluate individual homeowners as to their level of risk using a standard risk modeling method that's been vetted out and approved at the state level. The insurance commissioner is proposing a public hearing on that on April 13th at 1 o'clock in downtown, but they also have Zoom access if anybody's interested in knowing more about that process. But I think that's worth watching. And then last, but certainly not least, earlier, well, actually last week, the Board of Supervisors authorized the county CAO to enter into an agreement with the El Dorado Hills Fire Department for 2020, 2022, and 23, a 12-month period for EDH Fire to perform defensible space inspections on the county's behalf in accordance with the county's vegetation management ordinance. So we're looking at two emphasis areas. Again, words do matter. The first is in the Union Mine Road area of Diamond Springs. That's approximately 150 parcels in that community that will be inspected. And then we're also looking at an additional area in the rescue community of approximately 350 parcels that will be inspected in that area this year by EDH Fire. In addition, we'll also be performing all of the complaint investigations that the county receives regarding the ordinance. So on the West Slope. So we'll be involved in all of the communities on the West Slope here, investigating complaints that come in through the county's vegetation management program. And then finally, we will be hosting 2 community workshops countywide to assist homeowners in preparing for these inspections that we're about to perform. With that, happy to answer any questions, but that's the end of my report.
Chris. Pat and I just gave thumbs up, Pat Dwyer and I. This is Chris Payne, Patterson Ranch. Pat and I know that this area, Union Mine, it's a sandwich between Patterson Ranch Fire Safe Council and Logtown. So we really appreciate the fact that this has been identified. But I was wondering whether it's going to be how are you going to do it? Is it a third-party company that's going to be doing? How are you going to make those contacts with the individuals?
So the way the process will work, Chris, going forward is the county will be sending each of the homeowners in that area a written notice explaining the purpose of the inspection, the reminder that homeowners in that area do need to provide defensible space, letting them know that a fire district representative will be visiting their property in the next few months to perform that inspection, and then providing them a contact number if they want to try to schedule that inspection in advance. So that's the process. And then the fire district is in fact hired 4 defensible space inspectors for the year to perform these inspections.
You good? Good. Other thoughts, comments? So just an FYI to add on to that, one of the things I've talked to Ron about and Keith Johnson is that we're going to also marry up our information from the Fire Safe Council relative to our programs, the chipping program and the defensible space program for seniors, veterans, and low income, so that as they orient the inspectors before they go out, they'll be armed with the information so they can refer homeowners back to the Fire Safe Council programs. Again, it's just another resource and tool for them to get some of the work done that they may be eligible for. So again, we're trying to coordinate those efforts. And again, this is really focusing on the educational component. And that's why we felt it was really important to provide tools and educate as they're doing inspections. Great. Thank you, Ron. Next up, Juliet Barwies from the county's vegetation management program. Juliet, anything to add?
I don't. I was just going to share about the contract that we have in place with El Dorado Hills Fire and elaborate on that a little bit, but Ron did a great job covering all the details of that. So I don't have anything to report out at this time.
Thank you. Okay, so I know I just spoke with her yesterday, but I don't believe that Teresa Reisenhuber from the Forest was able to get on with us today. And as was mentioned here today, she is retiring fairly soon. So we are, I'm going to reach out to her, and we want to, I would like to propose we at least recognize her as a minimum for so much effort she has done, whatever it may be, you know, the Stevens Authority grants and just the partnership over the years. Did talk to Jeff Marcellet a few weeks or a month or so ago. I don't know who's been named as a replacement, but he is very committed and dedicated to ensure we've got that connection and we'll have that new person on board. So more to come there. Mark Egbert is tied up today at Sierra Tahoe, so he was not able to attend or report. Eric Brown at SMUD continues to have, he's just a busy guy with lots of conflicts, and definitely got to respect that. And so I continue to work with Eric to see if we can't find an opportunity, because he definitely wants to be here and participate and report out on SMUD's activities. See, I always know what emails to open from Pat, because he says, it's a good day, I've been to the post office, and it's just, I'll let him know. So next up is Mike Webb from PG&E, and Mike has a brief report he wants to give us. And while he's standing up and introing, I'm going to do my best to get his PowerPoint going and screen share it.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Ken. Again, Mike Webb, Public Safety Specialist at PG&E. Ken, thanks for the time the other day just to help strategize some of our outreach and not gobble up and respect everybody's time in the room. But there is an initiative that is being implemented. And honestly, I felt it was important to get ahead of this initiative as it is planned to be rolled out by the company here in April. But it's what we recognized is that the weather conditions are pushing our hand a little bit as far as the risk model and when and how we do our enhanced power line safety settings. So I felt it was important to get in front of this, bring it to this group as you know, you're the ones that hear the issues and get the questions, and maybe can provide some clarity and or provide resources to those in your community. So enhanced power line safety settings, what we're calling EPSS, essentially it's using existing equipment on our overhead distribution power lines to sense fault and shut off power in less than 1/10 of a second, thus not allowing sparks or an ignition from whatever impacted the line. So essentially we're doing this, we're shutting off the power in real time, recognizing a fault or an impact. What we experienced, though, it was not smoothly or cleanly rolled out last summer because for one, it was effective and efficient and needed to be done based on the conditions last summer. We did appreciate 80% reduction in ignitions from our overhead assets, which is something the company's never appreciated in their history as far as an initiative or a safety effort. So what is an enhanced power line safety setting? So essentially, anybody that has some understanding about our facilities, there are devices called line reclosers. And those of you know that when we, under normal conditions, there's an impact on the line, a recloser will sense fault and then attempt to clear the fault 3 times before killing the circuit. Is what we have done in previous years, recognizing fire risk, is that we just turn that capability off when we come into fire season. So 1 strike and the system goes out. Now that we have recognized our ability to go into those devices and actually reduce the sensitivity of that fault sense looking down the wires. So a line recloser can turn off a line, like I said, in 1/10 of a second, as opposed to mechanical devices like fuses or circuit breakers or those sorts of things. So object strikes the line, the devices detect that, shut the power off within 1/10 of a second. Then, as we all know, in fire season, we are required to patrol the impacted area prior to restoration of power. So that sometimes takes time. We've worked to sectionalize our circuits into smaller pieces and parts and make that restoration effort quicker and as more efficient as possible. So this is why we're doing it. So overall, in all of our CPUC reportable ignitions throughout the high fire threat districts, or the tier 2 and tier 3, as we're familiar with, our ignitions went down 40%. But on the circuits that were EPSS enabled, we experienced an 80% decrease in ignitions. So we only did a select group of what we deemed high-risk circuits last year. This year, it will be all circuits in higher fire threat districts or tier 2 and tier 3 areas, which in El Dorado County is just about all of them. So the next slide there, Ken. So there is impacts on customers. There are outages. This was not pretty and it was not clean or neat last year, especially on a couple circuits that had device issues, specifically South County and up through Kelsey, Garden Valley, and up through Georgetown. Our engineers have worked on this all year. They have optimized those settings. They have sectionalized the circuits. And as we come into these warmer, drier, and windier days, these settings will start to come into play. There's a whole wildfire plan. I think I sent that out to you, Ken, that actually talks about the weather and when these, hour by hour and day by day, these settings will come on and they will come off on risk throughout the system. That's a whole nother, that's like an 8-hour class, but we use standards recognized by the Forest Service and CAL FIRE to determine those risky days and when to shut or implement the system. So, and then also to reduce the outage times and impacts in our community. So, so how do customers, there's customer resources out there. We'll talk about those here. There's some information here on the last slide, Ken, for customer resources. And I think when you couple, and I'll just close out, when you couple EPSS or the enhanced power line safety settings, those cover every day, real-time safety on our system every day. And then when you couple that with PSPS, when we have those red flag, worst day, worst condition scenarios, I think we've really enhanced and eliminated risk through our communities. And I think it's just important to make sure that people understand this and are prepared, that they've set up their notifications. They know how to go look at the maps and get that information about restoration times, and that they're prepared at their homes and their families, which there's a ton of resources on the PG&E website. So I want to be quick and respectful. Ken, we can take a question or two. I'll stay here afterwards and answer any questions that anybody has. And then for the bonus today, I did bring some flip books, and they're just basically gas and electrical emergencies for community members. And these are great resources for those Fire Safe Council members that go out and support incidents throughout their community. So those are on the table in the back. So Ken, thank you.
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Mike. And yes, we met, and obviously there's a lot of information ongoing from PG&E. And so Mike and I have agreed to sort of spread out some presentations over the course of the year, if you will. So we have these shorter vignettes, recognizing also that we could ask Mike questions here all day. I'll take a couple. I see I've got Tamara online, and we'll do that. And then just recognize Mike's going to be here afterwards. So get into those specific questions with him then, and then we'll also, he's got good material information, and I try to forward out what he sends to all of you. The same operational information going to the fire chiefs and the partners Mike's sharing with us. So Tamara.
Hi, thank you. So I'm one of the people who was affected by the malfunctioning line last year. I think I lost my power 7 times in 5 weeks, and it was extremely frustrating, even though I understand the reason for it. But I'm curious, when you're making all of the lines in El Dorado County with the EPSS system, is there going to be a better system in place to quickly identify the lines that are malfunctioning and deal with it? Because it took a long time, I think, last year for PG&E to figure out that they needed to fix this particular line. I had to make calls, and it was extremely frustrating. So I'm just curious if PG&E has a process in place to deal with it a little faster this year when there's issues with the line.
Yeah, that's a great question, Tamara. And I live on the divide, and I know what you're talking about firsthand. So yes, there has been tremendous effort, one, to better what they call optimize the settings, or find a setting that will definitely, we have a bird strike or a limb strike, it's going to do what it's supposed to, but then obviously not do what it's supposed to do with either big load customers or those types of things that impact the system as well. So the system's been optimized through the winter. We have sectionalized the system to make restoration times be a lot quicker. I think one of the challenges we did have last summer was the Caldor fire was limiting our ability to patrol with aircraft because of the TFR over the fire. So that was just an X factor, if you will. And then we are always constant. We are out there improving, replacing, and improving the system best where we can, Tamara. So I've been asking the question all year, because of my firsthand experience, are those problems solved? And I've been reassured they are. Our leadership reached out to the community last fall and kind of bared their souls to you guys and took a lot of heat. So I have high hopes, Tamara. And like I said, we're doing everything we can, and we recognize the impact. So if we get into this again and we start down that road, just communicate, and I'll support you guys the best I can.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and again, thank you, Mike, for your continued commitment. And he has committed to be at these meetings, recognizing he can't necessarily get out to all satellite meetings, but definitely appreciate his partnership. So EDSO report. Now I have Lieutenant Morton down as the placeholder, but why don't you start to introduce yourself? Because I think you're probably the regular guy now.
Yeah, I'm Deputy Scott Bear from El Dorado County OES. We're not working on that much stuff right now, except for we're trying to upgrade our Code Red system to a better mass notification system. It's in the works right now, but if we do switch over, everyone who's currently enrolled in Code Red, they'll automatically be rolled over to the new system. So there's no worries to go out there and sign everybody up again. They'll all be rolled over. Besides that, in report, there's no other questions.
Okay, thank you. Yet look forward to engaging with you here, and thanks for making the commitment to be here. Okay, I have one question from David at the end.
Oh, could you just remind Lieutenant Morton that he's supposed to show up in Placerville on Saturday? I didn't get his attention. Hey, Mike, tell him.
All right, thank you, David.
Thanks.
All right, well, thank you for the partner reports. Next up, item 10, old business. I've got Title III projects update on here. Folks, you're all starting to send those in. I know that we're kind of taking them on a flow basis. We had Friday, the 18th, this Friday as the deadline. Understand that was the deadline we picked just to try to get stuff flowing in. It's not hard and fast. I just don't want to tell everybody, hey, send it in whenever you want. We need them as soon as we can so we can get them reviewed and get them back out. Or if we need to make changes to ensure that they fit within the program so you have time to implement. But don't stress if you can't get them all in, or if you're thinking about it and can't get it here by Friday. Just reach out, let us know so we can kind of plan for that. The goal is I think we've got 4 or 5, maybe 6 now sitting here, and try to get. E-board's going to try to look at those fairly quickly and get that back out for approval, and then again keep on a flow basis. And don't hesitate to reach out with questions as you put those together. Remember, simple is better. We're not writing a grant proposal. We just need a basic description to try to ensure that it's consistent with the requirements of Title III. And it's a little bit flexible and squishy, so we're trying to help interpret what the title is as well, so we don't get ourselves in trouble. But Lester.
Yeah, who does the reimbursement? Is it coming from the county or the Forest Service as far as, so it will be from the Fire Safe Council? Okay.
You have to spend it first. We send the receipts and the reimbursement form and it's on our website. And it send everything in by everything has to be received to me by the 5th of the month. We paid that first. Because I have sent it to the accountant by the 7th. And so I always can try to guarantee everything will be reimbursed by the 20th of every month, as long as you can get into the 5th of the month, at the beginning of the month.
And so long as the project is consistent with, I guess, what was submitted, it would be reimbursed. I'm a little uncomfortable because we've had discussions about what's eligible and what's not, and that we not end up with, somebody has an expense that then is deemed ineligible.
That's why you're shutting it.
Yeah, well, and that's also why don't start work under the auspices of this project until we give you an affirmation back that you're good to go. Because we don't want that either. We want to be very sensitive. I don't want folks thinking that, hey, I didn't hear anything, we're good to go. So we're trying to get really see if these things all pass the laugh test, right? Make sure that we're not missing something before we give you the green light. Because I don't, because if it doesn't work, I mean, we're not going to leave anybody hanging if folks have given their best opportunity to make this work, and somehow we find out down the road that we missed the mark, and we'll find a way to make folks whole. But in the beginning, don't start anything until we give you the green light. Oh, let's see. Who do we reach out for evacuation meetings? I don't know, maybe.
I was trying to reach out to when Scott was talking. Last year we had Todd Crawford, so I'm just trying to find out who is our contact this year. The evacuation meeting was spectacular last year, 2 weeks before we were evacuated. So we want to definitely do that again this year.
So make it spectacular, Scott. What are you going to do?
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll do as good a job as Todd, but to reach out for those, you're going to reach out to me. My email is bares@edso.org.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Sherry. Okay, next up, item 11, new business. I got a couple of things here. One is elections. First and foremost, it's a reminder that next month we will be formalizing, it's hard to believe we're already at that time of year again, but April is by the bylaws, the time of year when we start putting that together. As the bylaws indicate, Hugh, the vice chair, will form a committee or subcommittee to put that together. He'll work on that over the course of the next month, and we'll have more discussion about that in April. But don't be surprised if he's reaching out and puts his hand on your shoulder and asks you to participate. It's just a small group, but we definitely want to get that process happening. And it is important because obviously changes, the annual changes to the directorship as those positions, reach their term. And then also with the executive board, we will have several vacancies coming up on the executive board beginning in July. And so what I would encourage folks is to, if you're a director and interested in serving on the e-board, I'll just put it out there, both Maureen and Karen are not going to run for re-election. They have a million other things going on, and they'll still be participating, thankfully, as part of the Fire Safe Council. But they've done an amazing service over the last several years to get things where they're at, and we certainly appreciate everything they've done, and they'll continue to do. We're not throwing them out the door today, but just want to thank them. But important, we've got very strong interest already in the treasurer position, but certainly anybody who's interested, and of course we encourage folks, but certainly if you're interested in the secretary position, we'd love to see some interest there as well. And feel free to reach out to Karen, and she's going to sell it really well so that folks are willing to do that. But yeah, she's not going to tell you how hard it is. So more to come there. And then secondary to that, relative to elections, so did receive notification from Jim Stewart, our parliamentarian on the executive board, that he has resigned that position effective yesterday. And he's, again, it's family issues, obligations, life has its its obligations, and he's taking care of family and other folks. He again wants to continue to be part of the Fire Safe Council. He just can't commit to being on the role on the executive board. So when we were reviewing the bylaws, it's a little bit vague in how we make, because we really can't operate without a parliamentarian in the short term. And so it's a little bit vague as to how we fill those short-term vacancies. So what we've done in the background, and I would ask for the group's support, is that Steve Willis is willing to step up and fill that role for the next 3 months until we actually get to the election and can formally fill that that position. So that probably answered the question. So I would just, again, absent any formal process, I would like to ask the board's approval to appoint Steve to fill that role for 90 days until the election. Okay, do I have a second? Okay, seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Anybody, and probably easier for me to ask, anybody opposed? You just did a well done job, Steve. Okay, I'm not seeing anything online and nor here in the room. So again, thank you as always, Steve, for stepping up. And again, that'll be part of the suite of candidates that he will be soliciting for as we go forward beginning next month. So thank you.
What is the qualifications and what kind of training do we have to have in order to?
Yeah, it's in the bylaws, and we'll there are duties. There's our duties associated with that are in the bylaws that we can certainly share with folks. We're actually in the process of updating all of the duty statements for all of the executive board members. It's kind of been a work in progress. But we're certainly happy if you have folks that are interested, if we need to sit down and share some of that. But bottom line, parliamentarian is really critical in ensuring, obviously, we're following Robert's rules and other standard practices as it relates to operating a business. Yeah. 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 So we talked elections, bylaws update, 11B. So obviously we had made a number of changes to the bylaws as sort of the one-off changes over the years. We discussed at the last meeting as we approved the latest bylaw change that we really needed more of a holistic, not overhaul of the bylaws, but really bringing all of the amendments and changes over time into the fold of the parent document. So we have one consistent document that doesn't have a bunch of appendices for specific actions. Again, that's standard practice. It's important. That needs to happen periodically. We're all certainly at the e-board in agreement that that's that time. What I would like, and I've spoken to him, offline, but David's willing to bring that together. He's offered that to me, and e-board certainly supportive. I'd like to ask David if he's willing is to champion the effort of making that that update and change, soliciting. And it's important to know we're not rewriting the bylaws, we're really just organizing it into and bringing in the changes into the document in the appropriate places and ensuring the document flows, from front to back. So
Ken has said exactly what I agreed to do.
Thank you. Okay, I want to make sure.
I want to thank Jody for putting online what was fixing that. And I haven't quite finished because anyway, I'll copy and paste some more and hopefully we'll get one document and all the numbers will line up and there won't be as many footnotes and other things. So hopefully it'll be cleaner, but not changed from what we've done.
And
Does
that's
that
what we're
make
looking
sense?
for. And feel free to reach back out if you need support from folks on the board or other folks. And then ultimately we will work back with Jody on formatting and then we'll bring before the board the draft for approval down the road here once we get the document to look at.
My goal is before next meeting that all of the e-board has, and I'll throw Pat Dwyer in there too, has in front of them my proposal, my holistic proposal, and then you can pound on it all you want from there.
Thank you.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
And thank you again, David, for your willingness to do that. Okay, next up, program reports, 12A. Got Jody down for chipping, but obviously we can defer to the folks involved in that.
Do you want me to give a report?
Well, the chipping program, right? You handle you were Pat, do the chipping? Oh, sorry, you're pointing.
So the chipping program, as you know, is up and running, doing well. We amended our January report. We had 59 jobs we completed in January. February, we did 73 jobs. Rancho del Sol has a second neighborhood chipping day coming up on the 28th of this month. And Royal Equestrian Estates has a neighborhood chipping day coming up in April. That's all I got.
Next up, 12B, Ernie, the Defensible Space Program.
Yeah, I talked with Jody this morning and she felt that we can open up the program tomorrow with the concurrence of the council members that we're ready to go. We'll be, as we stated before, going to be getting some evaluators on small contracts to do some of the work on the western slope. So with the concurrence of the council members today, we'll open it up tomorrow.
We didn't really have this as a formal vote. The E-Board's already approved moving forward on the 17th. So
Okay,
we'll just
then.
throw this out as an informational item. We're assuming there are no challenges with folks out there. There's been a lot of demand, certainly for the program. And as I think the key difference here, as Ernie pointed out, because of the volume of work and the amount of funding in the program, I think it's roughly $130,000 this year. It quickly outpaced the ability for Ernie to be out doing all of the evaluations and run the program and do all the other things that he does. And so we have initiated the process hiring an evaluator to do that or evaluators, depending on the volume. Chris.
Just want to thank Ernie again for all the effort that he puts into this. And that the seniors and veterans of also, which Ernie keeps track of and keeps us informed, is extremely useful and very important to us as a community. Thank you, Ernie.
Well said. Thank you, Chris. Jody.
We have a lot of money, as Ken said, $130,000. We will be accepting 120 applications. And we have to get all those evaluated and done by the end of October. So it's going to be fast and furious here for a while. So 120 is a lot for us. Hopefully we'll get those. So if you know anybody that needs the program, send them our way.
Okay, one other thing, Jody, is that if you send out to the directors the flyer, then they can post it on their social media and other things. So yes, they will get the flyers by email.
No, thank you for that, Ernie. And also just Steve and I were just reminding ourselves the point of discussion. Also the program, we've increased the amount of funding per project this year. Also consistent with that is we're going beyond the 30 feet. I think we looked at an average, but in some cases we could get to 100 feet, but we're really, I think the average we looked at was about 75 feet based on the model. That's what we based the funding on per parcel. So again, hopefully be able to do a little more for each landowner this year. Okay.
Is there a chance that rooftops and gutters will be cleaned?
No.
Still no.
Yeah, the
Okay.
program it's the same work, just a little further out this year. We're not adding any other components. David.
Is there a plan to work tribal fire in also so they can maybe expand or enhance what we're already doing?
So David, if you have good contact with John Toyaba, if you could please have him reach out to me. I've tried several times to make contact. We would
Oh,
love to
okay.
engage him in this in a number of ways.
All right, and should I have him contact you and Ernie or just you? Or
Have him start with me because I'm trying to work a couple of things to help bring him into the fold. And I just like to have that dialogue.
Okay, yeah, I seem to have a little better luck. Also, you might hear from Chief Witt. They seem to be each other's bosses. They laugh at
Great. Well,
each other.
Certainly appreciate the connection because yes, we want them involved.
All right, you get it, Ken.
So Sherry's asking, when will we have our application to send to our residents? Tomorrow. So program opens tomorrow, so they will get all of that out to folks tomorrow. Thank you, Sherry. Okay, next up, 12C, Chili Bar project so far. Tamara.
The only update I have is we've just applied for a forest health grant for $5 million to do the phase 3 of the Kelsey portion of Chili Bar to Georgetown, and also to do CEQA NEPA compliance work in the entire city of Garden Valley, which will set us up to then apply for grants for Garden Valley if we get that. So that's where we're at.
He says that so matter of factly. We just applied for $5 million. Great work up there.
It was a great collaboration. I have some good people working with me on this. So yeah.
Thank you. Okay, D, I don't know if this was you, David, the Resource Advisory Committee, RAP, the update there.
Yeah, also, I go so far also, and so we're also working on biomass issues in particular. And so Tamara and others, Black Oak Mine, I think might get a microgrid biomass unit there, so we can start trying to do something with the product that's coming off the forest. So that's probably our first pilot project. Will be up on the divide also. RAC, there's over $100,000 that is going to be available to us, and we'll start looking at those projects pretty soon. We've got one vacancy that will hopefully be filled soon, but it's up to the United States Secretary of Agriculture to fill that spot. But we have very, very good candidates. Let's see what else I can tell you. Heather's not here. All right. On the RAP. Unfortunately, when I saw RAP is a very important program. We work with the Department of Insurance, in particular, it's wildfire risk reduction and asset protection program. United Policyholders is a 501c3 that runs it. Hugh, thank you. You seem to be very involved. You actually read the notes. The Vice Chair of Classville Fire Safe Council, Jill Keith, has been taking the notes for me because I have to do a homeless veteran case management meeting at the same time. So I can't do two things at once, but I promise to read Jill's notes sometime, but you already asked. Hugh, do you have any comments you want to make about the RAP notes that you saw?
No, I don't think we need to do anything at this time, David, but as we move forward, you and I will probably have more conversations.
Great, awesome. Thank you both. 13E, County Biomass Working Group. Chris, any updates there?
I was wondering, Ken, did we have 13A of CWPP?
Did it again.
Did we skip
I know
him?
Pat's like, I feel like dissonant.
I think I'm going to defer to Pat to start to
no,
do that,
not
and
on-
then I'll come in after that.
Okay, sure.
Okay,
Apologize for that.
CWPP, getting closer is all I can say. I think, did you get the CD? Are those current from this week? I've been looking in the mailbox to see.
Those are, I downloaded on some thumb drives.
Oh, okay.
Is there a current version that we need that's newer than what she had?
Just as long as the links work that didn't work on the online version, did you check it to make sure?
That is the CWPP final document. That's not all the individual tabs because he said those were updated.
Okay, well, that's all we really need, because here is the CWPP final printed document. I got 3 copies. It's very well done. I think Deer Creek and Barry did a good job for us. So these copies I'm going to give to you. I think one needs to go with the request to the Board of Supervisors when we're ready for that coordination. One might want to live in the library, the main library, and probably keep one for our records. So I'll give you the printed copies. The coordination, I have an example of how we did it last time. And also I'm thinking maybe we should do this, a similar page like this for each of the fire chiefs, because they all, at the fire chiefs meeting a few months ago, they expressed a desire for each one of them to have a look and have a chop. So I'll get with Jody on what that might look like. And that's the end of the report for CWPP. Moving along.
My only question is from the beginning, when you started this effort, how long has it been? When did you start this?
The one that got approved in 2017
was the beginning of
Oh,
this one,
gosh.
huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
We started, and this is the second iteration. So it was 2015, I think, that we started.
Okay, thank you.
So Pat, just verifying, obviously this will get to the fire chiefs within the next week or so, hoping to get it through their fire chiefs meeting on the 23rd with hopefully all of these signed shortly thereafter. But then does it start working through the approval process at the county after that?
Well, yes, we got to do the RCD, the Forest Service.
It's all on that sheet.
Yeah, it's all on
Okay.
the sheet. Office of Emergency Services. So yeah, there's a lot of coordination, and I'm gonna rely on Sue perhaps to help work through the county offices.
Maybe we can hand carry that there. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I've got a,
Okay, so Chris, we'll jump back down to 12E. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
there we go. So Pat, is there a digital copy of that available to review?
It's been online for quite a while.
The finalized one?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Because I
this
was
is
just
final, it says
asking.
Final. Yeah.
Yeah, there were some people that didn't know. I'm just
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah,
So,
no problem.
and it's on the County Fire Safe Council website.
Correct.
There was a,
Not put the new one
You can't put the
on.
new one on until it's finished, till you get.
but there was a working draft
website,
on there,
yeah.
wasn't there?
Yeah, there was a working
That's
draft
why I
with a tab for each of the local fire safe councils.
That was on an email that has not been linked to the website because it was all draft stuff. So I'll get with Ken what direction, what he wants on the website. And by the end of the week, I'll have that updated.
Okay, thank you.
And
Thanks
we'll commit, you know what we'll
Yeah.
do, Paul, is we'll send it back out to the directors so everybody knows where it's at and what's there and have it update. So no, thank you.
My bad.
Nope, no worries. Okay, okay, back to you, Chris Payne. Biomass.
So the county biomass working group, I did ask originally to put that on, therefore my name's on it. It's evolved somewhat. Supervisor Parlin has spoken up in past meetings about her perspective from county government. I think she's still on, Ken, or not?
Yep, she's still on.
But the county hired, for those that don't know, they hired an individual, Greg Stanton, who used to be the environmental management director. He took over as the point person for the county. So he's been reporting generally from time to time, and he works with individuals, myself included, who have an interest in this subject. I'm working with Supervisor Turnbull, George Turnbull, District 2. So I don't really have anything more than the generalization that I just gave you. If anybody is online that knows more about this, like Supervisor Parlin, maybe she could chime in. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Looks like we're good. So with that, circling down to committee reports, 14A, Heather reported out before she had to leave on the outreach and public speaking. 14B, Ernie, anything different on defensible space?
No, nothing different.
Thank you. Karen, 14C, governance. That'd be great. Thank you.
I got your email that I was included on with Sierra Christian from Greenstone Community. And so I will reach out to her and make sure she has all my contact information and send her the forms and let her know that she can contact me anytime, and I'll get together with her and
Mark Egbert lives in Greenstone.
And also she's we've added her to our friends of list, so she'll get information from us. And we've also offered Hugh's going to reach out to see if we can link her up with particularly Diamond Springs, who's just sort of gone through that process to just help them along as they think through it. I'm not sure.
Find out.
Yeah. Steve, did you have a comment, sir? Okay. But yes, thank you for that. Okay, so Pat, I circled it this time, so I don't forget you for grants update.
Make it real quick. A couple of changes on my grants committee report. Just a few numbers that are off a little bit. Tamara fixed them for me. We do have the RCD agreement with the Stevens Authority. Mark sent it back this morning, and it needs your signature, and you can sign it, and then we're good to go on the Gold Ridge Forest portion of the Stevens grant. And moving right along. End of report.
Thank you, Pat. Just been a lot going on in that whole program, and we do have some follow-up things, like you said, to close some things out with Mark Egbert and others on some older projects. With that, we are at the bottom of the agenda. So we actually made it at 11:33. Oh, I got a quick question. Oh, Sherry Hawk question.
I'm sorry, I am so full of it today. I can just reach out to Pat directly, but there's been a lot of questions about the PG&E $100,000 grant that's been separated between 20 fire safe councils. And there's just been a lot of questions.
Sherry, the grant that was an application. It has not been approved yet.
Okay. I'll send you my questions via email. Jeannie Harper and Heather and I have been talking a lot. We have some specific questions about the scope. So if we do get it, if it is granted to us, so.
Okay, please reach out.
Yeah.
I will. Thank you, Pat.
And we were trying, Sherry, get a placeholder out, which I haven't done yet. We were trying to let folks know it's out there in the bottom line. There's a draft calendar for supporting the community cleanup days, so that folks can coordinate with El Dorado Disposal. Trying to get folks that out ahead of time so folks can be thinking about it. But we don't have the grant yet, so we've been kind of careful about what we've sent out. So definitely we'll work back through Pat for the specifics, and we'll have more.
Yeah, the reason that we wanted to get some prep work done is the grant is very short time period. It's going to be available between probably the end of April and the end of October. So we thought we'd better get our ducks in a line so we can actually execute what we say we want to do.
Outstanding. Well, thank you, Pat. And thank you, everybody. With this, I'm going to officially adjourn the March meeting. Next meeting is April 20th, right here, virtually and in person. Thank you all.